friends. Welcome back to my Christmas stories.
Tonight, we'll be reading Santa Claus's Helpers.
Woohoo!
One Christmas Eve, when his reindeer had leapt to the top of a new building, Santa Claus was surprised to find that the chimney had been built much smaller than usual. But he had no time to think about it just then, so he drew in his breath and made himself as small as possible and slid down the chimney. I ought to be at the bottom by this time, he thought, as he continued to slip downwards. But no fireplace of any sort met Santa Claus's view, and by he reached the very end of the chimney, which was in the cellar. This is odd, he reflected, much puzzled by the experience. If there is no fireplace, what on earth is the chimney good for? Then he began to climb out again and found it hard work, the space being so small. And on Santa Claus's way up, he noticed a thin, round pipe sticking through the side of the chimney, but he could not guess what it was for. Finally, he reached the roof and said to the reindeer, "There was no need of my going down the chimney, for I could find no fireplace through which to enter the house. I fear the children who live there must go without playthings this Christmas." Santa Claus had not then discovered that stoves had been invented and were fast coming into use. The following year, Santa Claus found more and more of these new-fashioned chimneys that had no fireplaces. And the next year still more. The third year, so numerous had the narrow chimneys become, he even had a few toys left in his sledge that he was unable to give away, because he could not get to the children. The matter had now become so serious that it worried the good man greatly, and he decided to talk it over with Kilter, Peter, Nutter, and Whisk. Kilter already knew something about it. It had been his duty to run around to all the houses just before Christmas and gather up the notes and letters to Santa Claus that the children had written, telling him what they wished to be put in their stockings or hung on their Christmas trees. "Well," declared the laughing Whisk, "we must abandon any thought of using these new-fashioned chimneys, but become burglars and break into the houses some other way." "What way?" asked Santa. "Why, walls of brick and wood and plaster are nothing to fairies," said Whisk. "I can easily pass through them whenever I wish, and so can Peter and Nutter and Kilter. Is it not so, comrades?" "I often pass through the walls when I gather up the letters," said Kilter. "Therefore," continued the fairy, "you may as well take us with you on your next journey. And when we come to one of those houses with stoves instead of fireplaces, we will distribute the toys to the children without the need of using a chimney." "That seems to me a good plan," replied Santa Claus. "Well, pleased at having solved the problem. We will try it next year." That was how the four helpers all rode in the sledge with their master the following Christmas Eve. And they had no trouble at all entering the new-fashioned houses and leaving toys for the children that lived in them. Taken all together, the trip was a great success, and to this day the four little helpers always accompany Santa Claus on his yearly ride and help him to distribute the gifts. And Santa Claus soon found that parents were really anxious he should visit their homes on Christmas Eve and leave presents for their children. So to lighten this task, which was fast becoming very difficult indeed, even with his four helpers, Santa Claus decided to ask the parents to assist him. "Get your Christmas trees all ready for my coming," he said to them, "and then I shall be able to leave the presents without loss of time, and you can put them on the trees when I am gone." And to the others he said, "See that the children's stockings are hung up in readiness for my coming, and then I can fill them as quick as a wink." And often, when parents were kind and good-natured, Santa Claus would simply fling down his package of gifts and leave the fathers and mothers to fill the stockings after he had darted away in his sledge. "I will make all loving parents my deputies," cried the jolly old fellow, "and they shall help me do my work. For in this way I shall have many precious minutes, and no children need be neglected for lack of time to visit them." Besides carrying around the big packs in his swift flying sledge, Santa Claus began to send great heaps of toys to the toy shops, so that if parents wanted larger supplies for their children, they could easily get them. And if any children were, by chance, missed by Santa Claus on his yearly rounds, they could go to the toy shops and get enough to make them happy and contented. Perhaps you will now understand how, in spite of the size of the world, Santa Claus is able to supply all the children with beautiful gifts. To be sure, the old gentleman is rarely seen these days, but it is not because he tries to keep out of sight, I assure you. You see, he is so busy all year making toys, and so hurried on that one night when he visits our homes with his packs, that he comes and goes among us like a flash. It is almost impossible to catch a glimpse of him. And although there are millions more children in the world than there used to be, Santa Claus has never been known to complain of their increasing numbers. "The more the merrier," he cries, with a jolly laugh. The only difference is that his little workmen have to make their busy fingers fly faster every year to satisfy. "In all this world, there is nothing so beautiful as a happy child," says good old Santa Claus. And if he had his way, the children would all be beautiful, for all would be happy.
Thank you very much for listening to my story. I hope you enjoyed. I will see you soon, and bye-bye, friends.